Tonight, the new winter storm bearing down on millions who are still without power. 110 million Americans on alert from Texas up through New England. Another blast of snow, ice, and brutal cold on the heels of the storm that left dozens dead. Over 3 million homes powerless in Texas. The desperate struggle, families cooking in the freezing cold, some going to dangerous extremes to stay warm. Rolling blackouts with seemingly no end in sight. What's to blame for the massive failure? Also, the extreme weather causing a major disruption in COVID vaccinations and shipments. Sites shut down nationwide, thousands of appointments canceled. And after you're vaccinated, can you still spread the virus? We'll tell you what Dr. Fauci is saying. President Biden's new timeline when he now says every American can get the vaccine. And our exclusive with Vice President Kamala Harris. Does she agree with the CDC's plan for reopening schools and what she says about vaccinating teachers? Our series, Kids Under Pressure, teens warning homework has become a nightmare in the pandemic. One school working to change all that. And Scouts Honor, 17 young women making history and inspiring America.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. These are desperate hours for millions in Texas, still left in the cold and dark this evening from a failing power grid. Their misery compounded by sub-freezing temperatures and only vague assurances of when the lights may come back on for good. The frantic search for warmth putting some families at deadly risk from carbon monoxide poisoning as others find their water supplies frozen. And the extreme weather has been unrelenting. Another storm on the march, bringing ice and snow across more than a dozen states. All this hitting vaccine shipments hard. We're going to talk about that and what happens to all those now canceled appointments. A lot to cover this evening. Let's begin in Dallas with Morgan Chesky.
Tonight in Texas, frustrations rising in a frigid crisis.
We need our power out here.
My apartment is under 40 degrees.
It's freezing. It's a blackout, no electricity.
More than 3 million homes in the dark from a brutal cold, crippling the state's power grid.
Every source of power that the state of Texas has been compromised.
Today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott unable to say when the lights are coming back on. Rolling blackouts forcing countless families to fend for themselves. Minority communities hit especially hard.
When you hear power may not be fully restored for days, how's that hit you?
Oh, it's like a brick.
In Fort Worth, the Adelas piling their 7 kids into a church van turned shelter.
This is not okay.
Cooking in sub-freezing temps alongside cold and tired neighbors.
We're just doing the best, trying to survive.
In Houston, survival efforts turning deadly. More than 300 carbon monoxide cases flooding hospitals.
We are overwhelmed with the number of patients, and that does make us have to go into kind of a mass casualty operation.
People misusing cars, generators, and fire pits, trying desperately to stay warm. For others, a water nightmare. Pipes bursting or freezing, forcing some to go to extremes.
We're going to continue to try to collect snow since we haven't had water.
First responders working non-stop. Police body cam capturing a dog trapped on an ice-covered pond. Rescued and pulled to shore by officers just in time. The cold even hitting the coast, where volunteers saved hundreds of sea turtles, nearly frozen, and like so many others, left waiting to warm up.
We are ready for hurricanes here, but we were not ready for this.
A frightening realization with another freeze coming.
And tonight, the White House promising help is on the way, pledging generators and the much-needed diesel to run them to keep Texas hospitals and other vital facilities open till this cold snap clears. Lester.
Those folks going through a lot. Morgan, thank you. If you'd like to help those in need, you'll find the information on our NBC Nightly News Facebook page. Well, the pressing question in all this, just why was Texas so unprepared for the power struggle that has plunged so many into darkness and cold? Gabe Gutierrez in Houston now with more.
Tonight, the so-called energy capital of the world is mostly powerless. Who dropped the ball here?
Well, I think it's the state. Sadly, the state didn't prepare for the worst-case scenario, and now we're paying the price.
Texas is the only state with its own power grid, which critics say allows it to bypass federal regulations for cold weather safeguards. The governor is calling for an investigation of ERCOT, the nonprofit that operates the grid.
How could you not see this coming?
Well, ERCOT saw the storm coming. The issue that happened on Sunday is as the storm blew in, it also did damage to the supply side. And that knocked us enough out of balance that we had to take on these outages.
Some state leaders have blamed the outages on a failure of green energy, but wind and solar only make up 21% of the state's power. Natural gas makes up half. And this week, there wasn't enough supply for the demand caused by the extreme temperatures.
The power system, I think it's safe to say at this point, was not prepared for climate change.
El Paso, on the far west side of the state, is on a different electrical system, which is running smoothly, leaving Houston residents like Terry Gallick, who's been without power for 3 days, wondering what went so wrong.
Everybody knew ahead of time that the storm was coming. Why are we in this position?
More gas stations are closing here, and some people are lining up for propane. They have no firm answer on when to expect their power back. Lester?
All right, Gabe, thank you. And there's another blast of dangerous winter weather threatening several states tonight. Dylan Dreyer is tracking it for us. Dylan, what's next?
Lester, there are more than 110 million people under winter weather alerts from the deep south all the way to the northeast. We will see more icing in areas that have already been hit hard. But tomorrow, we're especially looking for North Carolina and Virginia to see most of that ice. You go north of that, we will see some snow, but it's really the ice that's going to be a big issue because we could see as much as 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of ice accumulation. That would down trees and power lines and also make road conditions treacherous. North of that, though, we will see most likely snow, but only about 4 to 6 inches out of this storm. Lester.
Yeah, Dylan, I think we've all seen this movie before. Thank you. And the brutal weather is slowing down the vaccination effort in all this. Just over 40 million Americans have now received at least one dose. About 64,500 are hospitalized. That's down slightly. Our Miguel Almaguer has more on the vaccine delays.
As one crisis triggers another, tonight frigid weather in some 30 states has frozen many vaccine distribution centers to a standstill with delays and cancellations. The snowstorm in Chicago preventing more than 100 providers from getting shipments. Weather also causing rippling shipping delays in Florida, leading to cancellations at grocery stores, complicating an already confusing system, rescheduling appointments that were nearly impossible to get.
I would certainly tell people to be their own best advocate and assume that they need to reschedule the vaccine themselves.
While no agency is reporting the total number of missed vaccinations, it's not just the storm, but supply compounding problems. In New York City, tens of thousands of appointments will be delayed because of their shortage, and another storm is moving in.
We're going to run out. Today, tomorrow, we're going to run out of what we have now.
With the U.S. vaccinating 1.7 million Americans a day, the White House says vaccine supply to states will increase to 13.5 million doses per week. At Gillette Stadium outside Boston, 65,000 have been inoculated, almost enough people to fill every seat in the stands.
For Americans who can get a vaccine, scientists are getting close to answering a lingering question. If you're vaccinated and become infected, can you still pass the virus to others? Early research looks promising.
There have been some studies that are pointing into a very favorable direction that will have to be verified and corroborated by other studies.
But help can't come soon enough. By mid-March, the CDC says 559,000 Americans could lose their lives to the virus. A dark reminder that every day and every delay can cost lives. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
Those vaccine shortages have factored into a new timeline by President Biden for when all Americans will be able to get the shots. And he's also offering a new goal for reopening schools. Peter Alexander has that story.
Tonight, with the COVID death toll approaching 500,000 people in the U.S., President Biden's announcing a new timeline for when all Americans who want a vaccine can get one.
By the end of July, we'll have over 600 million doses, enough to vaccinate every single American.
That's a shifting time frame after Dr. Fauci told NBC News just last week that all Americans could start to get vaccines in April. But the White House now says there's been a delay in vaccine production. And on reopening schools after the White House faced backlash for saying the president's 100-day goal was to have more than half open 1 day a week.
At least one day a week. Hopefully it's more.
This reset from President Biden.
There was a mistake in the communication. What I'm talking about is I said opening the majority of schools in K through 8th grade.
And when will those schools be open 5 days a week?
I think we'll be close to that at the end of the first 100 days.
The president during a CNN town hall touting his $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan, offering this projection about when life may return to normal.
By next Christmas, I think we'll be in a very different circumstance, God willing, than we are today.
And President Biden will keep the spotlight on vaccines tomorrow when he tours a Pfizer manufacturing plant in Michigan. Lester?
All right, Peter Alexander tonight, thank you. In just 60 seconds, Vice President Kamala Harris weighs in on reopening schools and vaccinating teachers. Savannah Guthrie's exclusive interview, plus in our series, Kids Under Pressure, Homework Overload. All right, we're back now with Vice President Kamala Harris on the battle to reopen schools. Does she agree with the CDC's plan, and do teachers need to be vaccinated first? She spoke one-on-one with Savannah Guthrie.
Let's talk about schools. We got a lot of parents watching right now. The CDC a few days ago finally put out some long-awaited guidance on how schools could safely reopen. But here's the thing. They tied it directly to the rate of infection in any given community. And I'm going to put a map up, because if schools were to follow that right now, 90% of the counties, 90% of the schools would not be able to open under the CDC's own metric. Was it a mistake for the CDC to connect school reopening to how much infection there is in a community?
Well, let's first say this, that in the last 4 weeks, schools are opening every week. More schools are opening. And it is because we are supplementing what needs to happen around the vaccinations, getting into to states, but also because we're seeing progress.
But what about that CDC guidance then? That's the question.
Well, so here's the thing. What the CDC, what they have recommended are exactly that, recommendations about how to reopen safely if they've been closed, how to stay open if they've been opened. And so the recommendations include what, again, needs to happen around social distancing, hand washing, mask wearing. But the point is that we all want our kids to get back to school as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
The CDC has said it is not a prerequisite for teachers to be vaccinated for them to go back to school. But many teachers are wary of going back to school. Can you reassure teachers who are listening right now that it is safe for them to go back to school even if they are not vaccinated, if these public health measures like distancing and masks are being implemented?
So first of all, let me just say this, and the president has said it, and we're all really clear. Teachers should be a priority. Teachers should be a priority. I believe that up to 22 states, have prioritized teachers in terms of vaccinations.
But the states have the. Is it safe for them?
Well, I think that we have to decide if we can put in place safe measures. This is why, and it's so important, we pass the American Rescue Plan. It's going to be safer for our schools to reopen when we can get our schools the infrastructure needs, like helping them with their ventilation systems, helping them create social distancing with barriers, the things that are necessary to get them back open in a safe way.
So, Savannah, after that interview, I understand late today the White House clarified.
That's right. A spokesperson said the vice president and the president agree vaccinations are not a requirement for teachers to return. It is the White House's preference that teachers get priority, but that, Lester, is up to the states.
An important conversation, Savannah. Thank you. And as the school debate rages, most students in our groundbreaking study say they feel a crushing burden from pandemic learning. Kate Snow on the massive workload in our series, Kids Under Pressure.
High school senior Hiba Ansari is attending all her classes virtually. The line between school and home has blurred.
We're looking at our computer screen all day, and then at the end of the day, we get like hours of homework at the end, and then it's just, computer time on computer time.
According to our study, more than half of teens say time spent on schoolwork has gone up. The average amount of weeknight homework rose during the pandemic to 3 hours a night. More than half of students say that's too much, and nearly 70% cite grades, tests, and assessments as their top source of stress.
Doing schoolwork for like 10 straight hours, either in class or just doing homework, so
I'm really tired and I just want to go to sleep.
Hiba is like so many students.
How has your motivation about school changed?
This sounds kind of bad, but like my motivation has gone down so much.
Challenge Success found fewer students are enjoying school. Almost half say they're just going through the motions. At Westlake High in Austin, where nearly half the students have opted for in-person learning, they're trying to ease the pressure.
When COVID hit, we just knew we couldn't sustain what we had been doing in the past.
Each day, one subject drops off the schedule and becomes a period for personal work.
Sometimes they need a little tutoring, sometimes they need one-on-one instruction, or sometimes they need to get a start on their homework.
Because the e-field never spreads out.
Seniors Jenna May and Felix Chen and sophomore Kaylee Kish say it really helps.
I think it's definitely been the biggest reason why I have lower school stress this year.
I'm able to check in with my teachers and go over any of the material I didn't understand the first time.
We're learning the same amount, but I think more efficiently.
In our study, students gave teachers high grades for support and caring during the pandemic.
They're being a little bit more flexible with time and just giving us more time in general.
Teachers have been really understanding, and because they know it's a crazy year for everyone.
Extracurricular activities are helping too. Jenna has band, Kaylee plays volleyball, Felix is student body president.
It's definitely not what I expected, senior year to be like, but I think I'm used to it now.
A school year unlike any other. Kate Snow, NBC News.
All right, let's talk about another crisis in America's education system, student loan debt. President Biden rejecting calls within his party to cancel up to $50,000 per borrower. He has his own plan, but some question if it's enough. With more, here's Sam Brock.
Last night at CNN's town hall.
We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen.
President Biden said he's willing to forgive $10,000 in student loans. Senator Elizabeth Warren firing back today, tweeting the president does have the authority to cancel more, though some experts say it doesn't tackle the root of the problem.
When you're forgiving loans to students who went to college in the past, that doesn't solve the problems for students who are going to school now or will go to school in the future.
It's a crisis crushing graduates years after they've put down their books, a record surge of student debt.
Paying off my student loans feels like being stuck on a hamster wheel because you realize that you're just paying into interest incessantly and you're not making a dent in paying it off.
Kara Kapp holds 2 degrees from Florida Atlantic University, has 3 kids, including 10-month-old Annie, and began with $30,000 in student loans.
My balance now is $28,000.
More than 44 million Americans are drowning in some $1.7 trillion in student debt, a number that's doubled in just the past decade. Nearly a third of borrowers are either in default, late, or stop making payments within 6 years. As families like the Capps wait and see how this all plays out. Sam Brock, NBC News, Boca Raton.
All right, up next for us tonight, the milestone in scouting. Finally, some of the newest Eagle Scouts are making history. Here's Kristen Dahlgren.
In communities around the country, almost 1,000 young women flew right through the glass ceiling this week.
When people think of Eagle Scouts, there's a lot of characteristics that they associate with them, like leadership, service.
And until now, they were always male. In 2019, Boy Scouts, now called Scouts BSA, opened its ranks to girls. So with at least 21 merit badges,
I don't think I'd ever really be welding.
And a service project, these young women ascended to Scouts' highest honor, something only 6% of Scouts ever achieve.
It teaches you perseverance and just hard work to get to the rank and also be able to join the group of people that call themselves Eagle Scouts.
Twins Dana and Sierra Roman are 2 of 17 young women in Baltimore to lead the way for girls everywhere.
Kind of leaves you with the feeling that anything is possible as long as you work towards it.
And isn't that the exact ideal that Eagle Scouts are made of?
All the things here.
Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News.
And that's Nightly News for this Wednesday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Finally, some of the newest Eagle Scouts are making history. Here's Kristen Dahlgren.
In communities around the country, Almost 1,000 young women flew right through the glass ceiling this week.
When people think of Eagle Scouts, there's a lot of characteristics that they associate with them, like leadership, service.
And until now, they were always male. In 2019, Boy Scouts, now called Scouts BSA, opened its ranks to girls. So with at least 21 merit badges,
I don't really think I'd ever really be welding.
And a service project, these young women ascended to Scouts' highest honor, something only 6% of Scouts ever achieve.
It teaches you perseverance and just hard work to get to the rank and also be able to join the group of people that call themselves Eagle Scouts.
Twins Dana and Sierra Roman are 2 of 17 young women in Baltimore to lead the way for girls everywhere.
Kind of leaves you with the feeling that like anything is possible as long as you work towards it.
And isn't that the exact ideal that Eagle Scouts are made of?
Hold the things here.
Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News.
And that's Nightly News for this Wednesday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.